this is Michelle Kane with Michelle Kane Photography and Actions. On this video tutorial, we're going to take a look at how we can salvage an image that was shot where the eyes are a little bit soft. And this usually happens if you shoot with a really shallow depth of field like I was doing on this picture. One eye is in focus and the other eye is a little bit too soft. We can break some of that back just by a couple simple techniques. The first thing we're going to do is just give it a little bit of sharpening. So I'm actually going to run See Things Clear from the Heart and Soul action set. And what that's going to do is give us some sharpening over the entire image. And we're basically at 50% opacity of this sharpening right now. I'm going to take that all the way up to 100. And we're seeing this everywhere, and the white mask shows us that this effect is everywhere. We really only want to sharpen the eyes. So I'm going to take this mask and invert it, which we can just hit Command or Control I. And now we've covered up all of that sharpening with this black layer mask, and we need to paint it in. So I'm going to grab a regular brush, and I need to switch my color to white. White always paints on a black layer mask. And I'm going to pick about a 50% opacity brush. And I'll just start to come in here and give this area around the pupil and around the edge of the eye a little bit of brush in. And just because I set my brush at 50% opacity, it doesn't mean that I'm not letting up on my mouse as I'm painting along. I do. So eventually there's going to be more than 50% opacity going on with this painting here. So as you can see with my brush, I'm going around just like the edge of the iris, again the pupil, and a little bit on the lash line. I don't want to go crazy with the lashes and make them overly sharp, but a little bit's going to go a long way. So let's look at this before and after. Already that's given us a lot of clarity and a lot more definition in the eyes. The next thing we need to do is give a little bit more definition to the dark area around the iris here and a little bit of lightness on the pupil. So I'm going to merge these, and I'm going to play another action called Merge It, so I don't have to really flatten my layers here. And I'm using Action Fire to quickly bring up my actions. So now we have basically a flattened layer that has See Things Clear hooked into it. So what we need to do now is go over into the tools, and I'm going to grab the burn tool, and I've got the burn set to shadow. We want to pick out the shadows, the darkest parts of the picture, and the exposure about 20%. And I've got an itsy bitsy teeny tiny brush here, and as I go along it's going to pick up those dark areas around the edge of the iris and darken them up even more. The burn tool burns things to make them darker. The dodge will make it brighter and lighter. So I'm just giving her a little bit of definition around the edge of her eyes. I'm going to come along in her lash lines and darken up just a little bit of this. I'm going to drop that opacity of my brush down to 10%. Just hit the 1 on my keyboard for that. And we're just basically painting in over these individual little eyelashes to give them some definition. And I'm also going to go in on the pupil and just darken up that pupil. It's going to help to make it feel as though it's sharper than it really is. We can go into the corners of the eye ducts if we want. The eye that's already sharpened, I don't want to go too far doing anything extra to it, because then again it'll be more sharp in appearance than the really out of focus eye. So that's all of the burning. Now we need to go to dodge. So underneath I'm just hovering or pushing my mouse over the burn tool icon, and we're going to pick dodge this time. And we're dodging the highlights. We can do shadows, midtones, or highlights. We want to pick out the brightest things, so the highlights. Exposure again at 10% opacity. And I want to go in here just lightly and get an itty bitty bit of that whiteness just a little bit brighter. I'm not going to go crazy. That's all I'm going to do. Just a couple little 10% swipes over the eye, and that's all we need. So let's look at the before and the after so far. Got some definition. Now we could call that good. I'm going to do one more thing, which is another action called Eyesightement. There it is. Say okay. And this is going to tell us to go ahead and paint it in. I'm going to grab a regular brush, B for brush, and a white brush for my black layer mask, and set my opacity on my brush to about 20%. And if I overdo it, maybe I'll drop my brush down to 10%. It's just going to bring out a little bit of color in her eye. I don't want to go crazy, but a little bit's okay. If I do go too far, I can always take the opacity of this entire action down, maybe about 65%. And now let's look at the before and the after. Out of focus eye, nice sharp eye. You can view more tutorials like this at michellecanephotography.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, guys.